The vault is officially open. The legal seals have been broken. And the silence that has protected the secrets of Montecito for 5 years has just been shattered by the sound of a gavel in the Southern District of New York. We are no longer dealing with internet rumors. We are no longer dealing with blind items or whispered gossip in the back rooms of London private clubs. We are staring down the barrel of a forensic event, a narrative extinction-level event. Reports are flooding in this morning that the final unredacted tranche of the Ghislaine Maxwell deposition has been accessed. Legal observers on the ground confirm that this new file contains a specific exhibit, a ledger of interactions that names not just Prince Andrew, but 8 other high-status individuals linked strictly to royal circles. 8 names, 8 associates. And one of those names allegedly connects the timeline of a certain duchess to the timeline of the most notorious trafficking network in modern history. Inside Buckingham Palace, sources describe the atmosphere as a nuclear winter. The men in gray suits, the operators who actually run the institution, have reportedly initiated the Zero Trust Protocol. Prince William has severed the final thin lines of contact. There are no back channels open. There are no negotiations for a return. Why? Because you don't negotiate with a biological hazard. You contain it. For years, the mainstream media told you the yachting narrative was a conspiracy theory. They told you it was trolls in basements inventing stories. They used the fairy tale wedding to blind the world to the reality of the bride's resume. But if these documents prove what insiders suspect they prove, the fairy tale was actually an infiltration. It means the royal family didn't just marry an actress, they married an operative. And the panic isn't about Harry writing another book. It's about the world finding out that the British monarchy failed the most basic background check in history. To understand the sheer gravity of this moment, you have to look past the Oprah interviews and the Netflix tears. You have to understand the architecture of the lie. It didn't start with Megxit. It started years ago deep in the gray zones of the international party circuit. We have always asked the question, how does a cable actress with a mediocre resume on a basic cable show and no personal fortune end up vacationing on yachts that cost $500,000 a week to charter? How does she gain access to the inner sanctums of Istanbul Phuket and Toronto's elite? How does she collect jewelry worth more than her annual salary before she even meets a prince? The media told us she was a philanthropist. The Maxwell files suggest she was inventory. The lore of this channel has always pointed to the missing years, the era where the timeline blurs, where she was allegedly managed not by a Hollywood agent, but by a fixer. We have spoken about Marcus. We have spoken about Soho House. But today, those names are not just characters in a video essay. They are potentially co-conspirators in a federal legal filing. The rumor swirling around the investigation suggests a terrifying crossover. Imagine a Venn diagram where the lower tiers of the Epstein recruiting grounds overlap with the upper tiers of the exclusive club circuit. The theory is simple. Was Soho House the soft entry point? A place where ambassadors could be groomed, polished, and introduced to the stateless royals we mentioned earlier. If the new documents link the 8 royals to specific events hosted at these clubs, events where Meghan was present, the plausible deniability evaporates. It ceases to be a social coincidence and becomes a documented association. But that wasn't the only red flag the palace ignored. Let's apply a magnifying glass to the period between 2013 and 2016. We have the Instagram archive. We have the blog posts from the TIG. They painted a picture of a freedom-loving traveler, eat, pray, love with a designer wardrobe. But look closely at the locations. St. Bart's, the Mediterranean coast. These are not random tourist destinations. In the world of intelligence and high-end facilitation, these are hubs. They are jurisdictions with loose privacy laws and high concentrations of billionaire vessels. The forensic anomaly here is the funding. Who paid for the 5-star suites? Who paid for the private aviation? We know her salary on suits. We have run the numbers. After taxes, agents, managers, and PR fees, the math does not support the lifestyle. So who bridged the gap? The Maxwell files allegedly contain a ledger of expenses travel facilitation for redacted individuals. If the dates of those expenses match the dates of Meghan's tours, the narrative collapses. It suggests she wasn't a tourist. She was on assignment. And this is where the 8 royals come in. If those royals were the hosts of these trips, if she was yachting not as a guest but as a commodity, then her entire introduction to Harry is poisoned. It implies that Harry was targeted. He wasn't meeting a soulmate, he was being intercepted by a woman trained to mirror his desires by the very best in the business. But while digital footprints can be scrubbed and flight logs can be redacted, there is one type of evidence that is much harder to erase: carbon. Hard, cold, glittering carbon. Now we are going to focus on the smoking gun sitting in the jewelry box of the Montecito mansion. The media loves to analyze Meghan's fashion, the coats, the heels, the bags. But they are missing the story telling itself right around her neck and ears. In the world of high-end facilitation, jewelry is not just decoration. It is currency. It is a tag. Let's look at the Chopard earrings. The official palace narrative spun in 2018 was that these stunning diamond chandelier earrings were a wedding gift from Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia. Pause. Process that. Why is the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia sending a $500,000 wedding gift to an American cable actress he has supposedly never met? The palace claimed they were borrowed. Then they claimed they were gifted. The story changed 3 times. Why the inconsistency? Because the timeline didn't fit. Forensic sleuths have flagged photos that appear to show Meghan wearing these earrings or remarkably similar ones before the wedding, before the official gift date. If she had them before the narrative explodes, it implies a pre-existing relationship. It implies that she was already in the orbit of the Saudi elite, a circle that overlaps heavily with the stateless royals mentioned in the Maxwell deposition. In this specific context, expensive jewelry is often a retainer, a down payment for availability. If the Maxwell list confirms that one of the 8 royals acted as a bridge between the network and the Saudi elite, then those earrings are not a gift. They are evidence of a transaction. And the palace knows it. Why do you think we never saw a full investigation into the bullying of staff? Because the staff knew about the earrings. They knew the provenance. But the jewelry is just the tip of the iceberg. The real danger lies in who she might have met along the way. We have to weave in the Prince Andrew connection, specifically the inappropriate friends email. We know Prince Andrew emailed Ghislaine Maxwell asking for new inappropriate friends for a weekend at Balmoral. This is a matter of public record. For years, the media treated this as a separate scandal. Andrew is the bad one. Harry is the sad one. But look at the timeline convergence. 2013 to 2015. Location London, the Soho House circuit. The rumors screaming out of the legal leaks today suggest that the pool of inappropriate friends Andrew was drawing from is the exact same pool Meghan was swimming in. Did they meet? Meghan claimed on Oprah. She didn't know much about the royal family. She claimed she didn't know who Andrew was, thinking he was merely the Queen's assistant. But watch the body language again. The suppression of a smile, the rapid blinking. If the Maxwell files contain a photo or a log entry placing Meghan and Andrew in the same room at a party hosted by one of the 8 names prior to 2016, the stranger in a Strangeland story is dead. It means she wasn't a stranger. She was a known quantity. It means Andrew knew exactly who she was when Harry brought her home. And it means the Queen's famous phrase, "recollections may vary," was a polite way of saying, "we have your file." But if you think the past is the only thing haunting them, you're wrong. The future is even more terrifying. We have arrived at the darkest, most volatile chapter of the imminent collapse, the chapter the mainstream media is terrified to touch, the chapter that deals not with gossip, but with biology and succession. The panic radiating from the palace over the Maxwell list isn't just about reputation. It is about the integrity of the line of succession. If the mother of the king's grandchildren is confirmed to be an operative of a compromised network, the status of those children changes instantly. They stop being beloved family members and become national security risks. And Meghan knows this. She knows that the children are her only remaining tether to the institution. They are her anchors. They are her annuity. This brings us to the nuclear option of the royal family, the DNA. For years, the theories about surrogacy and moon bumps were dismissed as internet madness. But in light of the Zero Trust Protocol, we have to look at the legal reality. Under British law specifically, the rules governing the line of succession, a child must be born of the body. A child born via surrogate, even if genetically related to the parents, is not eligible for the throne. They are not eligible for titles. If the Maxwell deposition destroys Meghan's credibility, if it proves she is a fraud, then every document she has ever signed comes under review, including the birth announcements. Sources suggest that the palace has never fully verified the medical records to the standard required by the old guard. They took Harry's word for it. They tried to be modern. They tried to be kind, but kindness is a luxury the monarchy can no longer afford. If the 8 names list drops and the public turns on the Sussexes, King Charles has the political capital to demand the one thing Meghan has fought to hide: a verified independent DNA test and medical audit. This is the checkmate. If she refuses, she admits guilt. If she agrees and the records don't match the story, the titles are gone. The prince and princess vanish. She isn't just fighting for her reputation anymore. She is fighting for the validity of her children's existence as royals. Let's go back inside the mansion in Montecito. The air is cold. The silence is heavy. Meghan is in the war room, but this time she isn't screaming. She is dialing. She is holding her burner phone, the one with the numbers that aren't in the iCloud. She is trying to reach the old guard, the people who fixed things before the palace lawyers got involved. She dials Marcus, voicemail. She dials the PR crisis team in LA. Voicemail, she dials the friendly journalist in London. The number is no longer in service. This is the scene of the crime, the realization of absolute isolation. For years, she relied on the network to clean up the mess, to bury the bullying report, to spin the narrative, to bot the comment sections. But the network protects itself first. When an asset becomes a liability, when an asset gets named in a federal deposition involving the T word, the network cuts the line. She is burned. She looks at Harry, who is reportedly described by insiders as catatonic. He is watching the news cycle, watching the headlines inch closer and closer to the one word he has spent his life trying to escape: trafficking. He thought he was saving a damsel in distress. The documents might prove he was simply the final client in a long line of transactions. This is the psychological break we have been warning you about the moment the savior complex crashes into the forensic reality. The phone isn't ringing. The invitations aren't coming. The A-list friends, Clooney, Oprah, Tyler Perry, are suddenly very busy because nobody wants to be in the blast radius of a Maxwell revelation. The brand is toxic, the victimhood is expired, and the truth is approaching with the speed of a freight train. So how does this end? It doesn't end with a renewal of vows. It ends with an extraction. Sources inside the Montecito Survivor Squad report that the couple is effectively living separate lives. But the Maxwell list changes the calculus. Before, they were stuck together by mutual need. Now they are being torn apart by survival instinct. Harry is realizing that staying means going down with the ship. Staying means his name is permanently attached to the Epstein-Maxwell blast radius. The institution is offering him a lifeboat, but it is a lifeboat with only one seat. The strategy is known as the Grey Rock extraction. The palace is starving Meghan of oxygen while quietly opening a back channel to Harry, not to the Duke of Sussex, but to Captain Wales. The rumors suggest a safe house has already been prepared in the UK. Not a palace, a quiet estate, a place for deprogramming. We have to look at Harry not as a husband, but as a victim of coercive control. The glaze in his eyes, the isolation from his friends, the parroting of therapy speak phrases that don't sound like him, these are the hallmarks of a man who has been hollowed out. The Maxwell documents are the shock to the system he needs. When he sees the names the men his wife allegedly networked with, the cognitive dissonance will shatter. The savior realizes there was nothing to save. He realizes he was the mark. The puzzle is finally coming together, and the picture it forms is not a romance, it is a recruitment. And just a reminder, every deleted tweet, every fake statement, and every PR cover-up takes hours to piece together. If you want to help this channel keep exposing what the mainstream media won't hit, that join button and become a member. We are watching the sheer biological terror gripping the Montecito mansion as the Zero Trust Protocol slams shut in London. Meghan is left in the mansion with the silence. She tries to launch the nuclear option. She calls the networks. I have the diaries, I have the tapes, but something has changed. The networks aren't buying, the publishers aren't bidding. Why? Because the Maxwell stain is indelible. No major corporation, no respectable brand will touch the associates of that list. The game is over. The Duchess is about to find out what happens when the mask slips, the money runs out, and the king decides to close the book.